Bring it on, Coco Nuts!
Moana 2. It's been amazing to see how far Moana will go since she first set sail back in 2016. And as it turns out, she went so far that the ocean called her back for a second voyage. I'll say right now that, like many, I really enjoyed the first Moana. As the last feature from Disney's dynamic directing duo, John Musker and Ron Clements, the movie hit all the right notes to become a beloved new addition to Disney's legacy, along with playing a big part to Walt Disney Animation Studios' great success during the 2010 decade next to Frozen, Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph, and more. The story is inspiring to show the importance of exploring the world around you, the animation is beautiful, the representation of Pacific myths and culture is admirably authentic, the characters have a lot of charm, and the songs are unforgettably great. And while Zootopia had the upper hand as the most celebrated Disney film of 2016, Moana swam her way to the top to quickly place her feature as an all-time classic, where to this day, Moana is not just one of the most watched animated films on Disney+, but it is also one of the most watched movies in streaming history. Seriously, no matter what year it is, you'll always find that film hanging around the top 10. And with that kind of legendary status, it was inevitable that the daughter of the chief of Motunui would return for an encore. However, it was originally planned to be Disney Animation's first long-form series on Disney Plus before they completely changed the project to what it is today. Which has some fans worried because the previous times that this happened with Disney resulted in some of the company's worst animated films. But I'll just say now that I highly doubt that Disney would be that stupid to let the sequel be that bad. Yes, I know the company recently had some embarrassing moments where they can be this dumb, and this dumb, and this dumb, and this dumb, but if they turn out to be that dumb with Moana 2, then even I'll admit that they've become hopeless.
Which, you guys won't. You're not gonna do that. I don't even know why I said that.
So now that we're exploring the oceans again with a crew of old and new allies, can Moana navigate her way to greatness for the second time? Or is this sequel gonna sink? Let's find out. The story. It's important to remember the fact that this was originally planned to be a Disney Plus series, because it actually explains a lot to why the movie turned out this way. However, there is a whole story that presents Moana's adventure, as she sets up a crew to explore the oceans again to find the lost island of Motufetu in order to reconnect with other people across Oceania, to which they were all separated by the power-hungry god Nalo.
Hidden in a terrible storm, it's an ancient island. Setting foot on its sands would break the curse, bring our people together again.
What makes it prominent that this was a series that transformed into a movie is not what you may initially think. It's not necessarily how each scene feels episodic, and you can point out to where the possible episodes would start and end. I'll even say that I understand how the transition can work with something like Moana because you can argue that the original has an episodic flow as well. But in the case of Moana 2, what makes that fact noticeable is also its biggest problem. Throughout the movie, the storytelling feels like it goes way too fast, as if it took the plot of the planned series and had to condense it to 90 minutes, rushing each scene to get the narrative across. I'll say now that this is an issue that I'll be repeating throughout this review, since it caused to hold back a lot of its own elements to be presented at their full potential. The most that it could do is present the main ideas that they have, play a musical number or tell jokes, and go straight to the next scene without turning back.
Now I kinda miss the lava monster. Ow! Ow!
Because of this rush, it reduces the film to be a skeleton of what it wanted to be, sacrificing so much that would give its own elements more meaning in favor of trying to let out all of its own ideas in a relatively short amount of time. One way that it negatively affects the story is how it damages the emotional core. It doesn't take the time to show why certain elements or moments matter to characters, or even what this whole adventure means to Moana. At the most, they only glance through it by leaving a quick explanation before jumping to the next joke or song. It's like the movie is about to make a meaningful connection with its audience, only to get distracted with whatever it just came up that quickly changes the mood.
Giant hawk! So serious.
And what honestly sucks about it is that I can see a good story in this. If the feature were better handled or allow itself to be closer to 2 hours in length to flesh out the scenes, it would have made itself significantly better, where the action could have been more intense, the personalities would have had more depth, the heart would have been a lot stronger, and the message would have been more impactful. Sounds crazy, but deep within, I could see a commentary of how connecting with people from far away is better than to be segregated in our little areas by a force who only wants power. And yet, it ended up being undermined by its own speed, where the only thing that's clear about it is that Moana has to get to this island in order to break the curse.
We'll face crazy monsters, angry gods, and Kaka.
At best, the movie does provide a taste of that great story that they had planned, but it unfortunately valued supplying the quantity of its ideas that they wanted to execute rather than the quality to form a story with a good tempo. The only thing that this didn't affect is the comedy, which I find to be a hit and miss. I know that being funny isn't really its top priority, but there are times when the jokes don't land that well, or moments where it relies on throwbacks from the first movie, like a constant reminder that this is a sequel to Moana. Then again, I wouldn't write off the comedy as a lost cause, because there are others that periodically give me a good chuckle. At the most, they help make the picture and some of the characters a little more enjoyable and add some charm to the experience.
You never saw me like this? Even though I still look very cool.
You look like a kidney stone.
And you look like someone who would know what that is. Now,
in concept, I could see how this story is well suited as a continuation of Moana with all the materials needed to create a worthy successor. But by overstuffing those materials into a shorter format like a movie, it results in the story to go too fast for its own good and make the flow of the adventure feel like a bumpy ride. The animation. Yes, the movie had a hard time trying to turn the series into a movie. But when it came to the animation, now with the assistance of Disney Animation's new Vancouver division, that still remained as strong as the original. I'll even say that it's easily one of the best elements of the feature. Just about all the familiar visual tricks that the first movie did return to bring back the fun of Moana. From the ocean coming to life, to the Kakamora's giant ship, to the comical hand-drawn animation of Mini Maui going all around the demigod's body, to all of Maui's transformations to help him go through the action. All those unique effects did come back for the sequel, and they're still as impressive to watch as they were before with the way they mix elements to create something new, or finding new ways to express personalities without dialogue. Also, its Pacific aesthetic is still strong in its authenticity. Like before, we get to visit Motunui to see how Moana's village works together as a community to help supply their essential needs and carry traditions to the next generations to keep their stories alive. On top of that, it also supplies the tropical color palette that is largely dominated by blue, green, and light brown, but several others are also thrown into the mix that help make certain elements pop out, while also give some identification to the characters.
The ancestors called on me to reconnect our people across the entire ocean.
So it's good to know that the beautiful animation came back for the sequel. But of course, pulling off those same tricks isn't enough to keep this visually engaging. It needs to also offer something new to help visually spice itself up and have it stand out from its predecessor. Well, don't worry, with what Moana and her team had to go through to find Motufetu, there are certainly a lot of new sights to see. Some great examples include Nalo, who is presented as a giant storm that uses tornadoes and lightning to keep everyone away from the island, and the giant clam that is the gateway to Matangi's lair and is loaded with different textures and vibrant colors. At the same time, both old and new people provide something extra with the character animation. Their movements are already dynamic enough to fully express their personalities, but they are taken to the next level during the musical numbers to go all out with the choreography and make the most to have those scenes feel like a spectacle. And then there is the action. With big threats like gods and monsters, a significant part of Moana is seeing her and Maui go through life-threatening situations to accomplish their mission. I'll admit that the action in the sequel is not as intense as the first, but that's due to the film's rush speed not providing the time to emphasize the forces that the characters are up against and how they were able to resolve them relatively quickly. Still, I have to give credit to the animators for doing the most that they could in order to have the scenes be at least fun to watch, where they get to play with the large scale of the shots and show off the characters' abilities and navigating skills.
This is bigger than the ancestors. Bigger than us. The entire ocean is counting on us.
Among all the elements of Moana 2, the animation is the one that had the best transition from the first to the second, because it not only maintained what made the original's visuals breathtaking, but also supplied some updates and new additions to show that Disney's magic is still strong in certain parts. The characters. Alongside our favorite Wayfinder and Demigod, there is a new batch of characters who joined us to set sail on this adventure. If only the movie can give us time to actually get to know these people. This is where we find another major problem with the movie's attempt of cramming the story of a whole series into 90 minutes. It has no time to give depth to its personalities. With the new ones, they can only showcase their one personality trait, a bit of their purpose to the film, and that's it. There are a bunch that are just one-dimensional, but it wasn't by choice. It's just the feature going too fast to give us a full introduction to them. In the case of the recurring characters, that isn't too big of a problem, and they still maintain their charisma that made them as enjoyable as they were in the first. But their roles did feel like they were reduced. Moana is now just trying to accomplish her destiny of bringing back Motufetu without going much into why it's important for her to connect with other people across Oceania.
Our ancestors wanted to connect our island to all the people of the entire ocean.
Meanwhile, while he periodically appears in the film, Maui joins the team around halfway into the picture so that he could return the favor to Moana and help give her encouragement to achieve her goal.
The point is, there's some serious God stuff going down, so I'm gonna go handle my business.
And of course, you do get the non-verbal sidekicks like Minnie Maui, the ocean, Hey Hey, and now including Pua to tag along and supply their own comedy. Which I will give it to them that they have a lot of the better jokes. Most of the time, if I do find myself laughing during the experience, it's most likely because of one of them. Also, one thing that I do appreciate is how it expands upon a few of the minor characters from the first, such as one of the ancient voyagers, who is actually Moana's ancestor, Tautaivasa, and the Kakamora who are looking to find their way back home, which was taken away from them by Nalo. Even one of them joins Moana's crew to help her across her journey. But as for the new characters, I see how they serve a purpose to the picture, but they don't have the time to do that with their personalities. With Moana's shipmates, they're able to help out in the adventure with their useful functions, such as Loto's crafting smarts and Moni's knowledge on legendary tales and translations, but their personalities are a bit annoying, with Loto being a fast talker, Moni being the excited fanboy, and Kele being the grouch. I don't hate them, but they are my least favorite characters because of how they unnecessarily try to be extra comic reliefs.
I'm gonna need a crew.
Sweet! A farmer on the sea!
Yes! I'm going with Moana!
Then there are others that I feel like their only problem is that they needed a lot more time to present who they are, because they have great potential, but the rush with the storytelling undermines their significance. Simia was a nice addition to give the film more heart and be an example to why Moana is doing this journey so that she could give a better future for her baby sister, especially when they do have some cute bonding moments. Too bad that Moana rarely thinks about her after she sets off on her new voyage.
So you can take a piece from home.
And then there's Matangi, who works for Nalo to keep Maui captive at the start of the film. I'll say now that there's not much to say about Nalo, other than being the movie's Tekka, but never had a heart, but I was surprised to find myself really enjoying Matangi. She has a strong, outgoing personality, and her animation is real fun to watch with how she flies around and ignores the laws of gravity. She seems to be this movie's equivalent to Tamatoa and could have been on par with him, but with how the feature speeds through her intentions with Moana and her feelings towards Nalo, her character feels like a missed opportunity, and there could have been so much more that she could have contributed to make her personality stand out. However, regardless of how the characters are written, there is something that gives all of them a good boost, and that is the voice acting. Regardless if it's from the returning actors or the new ones, everyone, even from those who did the less enjoyable characters, all sound like they were very excited to be a part of this project and that they want to give out their best performance to make this movie better. Of course, Sauli, Cravalho, and Dwayne Johnson already understood the assignment to bring their characters to life like they did before, but the others like Aoi Fraser, Rose Matafeo, David Fane, and more also did wonderfully with their acting. Maybe the materials they had to work with isn't great, but they were definitely able to make the most out of them.
We've gotta find our rhythm!
At worst, the characters are missed potentials. There were a lot of opportunities to either fix their personalities or present more of their function and motives to make them feel more worthwhile, but it's mainly the movie's rushed nature that prevents them from being better than what they could be. But thanks to the great acting, they do provide some good qualities to the feature, and it is still nice to see Moana and Maui back on their epic voyage. The songs. On top of not having John Musker and Ron Clements returning as directors, another team member who didn't come back was Lin-Manuel Miranda, who was busy working on his Warriors album and Mufasa the Lion King. Instead, Disney brought on board Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear to write the songs, who previously made the Grammy Award-winning album The Unofficial Bridgerton Musical. I'll say now that they deserve praise to get such a legendary opportunity at a young age. I know that this is a dream job for many, but when it comes to the songs that they wrote for Moana 2, well, they're no Lin-Manuel Miranda, I can tell you that. The good news, though, is that the two other songwriters of the first Moana, Mark Mancina and Opataya Fawai, did return to work on the music, and the score does help to give the movie that same accurate Pacific feel that they did on the first. I'll even add that a handful of songs are native chants that help with the immersion of the film's location. But back to Barlow and Bear, my biggest criticism on their contribution is that they mostly feel like they're trying to recapture the original's magic, but never really got there. Rather they be copying Miranda's lyrical style or the function of the original songs, they generally have a sense that they want to be like the soundtrack of the first. This is not to say that the songs overall are bad. They are decently crafted in their own right, but because they want to be like something that already existed instead of being their own works, they end up feeling like inferior versions of the ones from the original. such as the case with We're Back and What Could Be Better Than This.
Finally, we're back to who we're meant to be, who I'm meant to be. What could be better than this? Really nothing better than this. What could be better than this? Really truly nothing better than this. I tell it, the oceans are proud.
But it is true that not all songs try to copy the first movie. At the most, they do so only to a varying degree, and the less it tries to emulate Miranda and the original, the better that it stands on its own, such as the case with Beyond, Get Lost, and Can I Get a Chee-Hoo?
What lies beyond, under skies I've never seen. We gotta get lost, cut loose, and lose our way. There ain't no fun in holding back, babe. You gotta enjoy.
Tell them enough's enough. Come on up, Moana, go get your destiny. Can I get a, let me hear it? Can I get a chee-hoo?
Yes, their purpose feels similar to How Far I'll Go, Shiny, and You're Welcome respectively, but at least they aim more to be their own thing instead of prioritizing to be the sequel's version of those songs. I agree that the soundtrack is not as good as the first, and I doubt that the songs will be as memorable either. But at the same time, they're not unbearable to listen to, and there are a few that I'll admit are bangers. Again, they're no Lin-Manuel Miranda songs, but they are a valiant effort. Would this movie have worked better as a series instead of a movie? Honestly, yes. But that doesn't mean that this is a bad sequel. Moana 2 is a clear downgrade from the original, but it is still a decent follow-up on its own. Because of the attempt of turning a series into the animated feature we have today, it came with a bunch of problems like a rushed story that values the quantity of its own ideas instead of the quality of how they can work together, characters that come out flat, and its overall potential being held back. However, even with those problems, it still came out alright with the strengths outweighing the flaws, like with the beautiful animation, great voice acting, and some songs that are enjoyable. Would I recommend you to check this out? Well, I wouldn't consider this as a must-watch, but it's worth checking out at least once. Maybe don't set your expectations high thinking that you're going to experience the next Disney classic, but if you want to see more of Moana and Maui and their high seas adventure, then you'll be happy with your experience. And if you're happy with your experience with this review, then how about giving this a like and subscribe to my channel? And if you want to go beyond with your support, then join my Patreon where the rewards will get you a chee-hoo. This is for sure not among Disney's best sequels, but for a movie that was meant to be a series, this is still better than Milo's Return and Belle's Magical World. And while this may not be great, let's appreciate it before the next Moana movie comes, because I got a feeling that one's gonna be much, much worse. Oh my goodness. What can I say except, oh God, no!
Is something distracting you?